Welcome to Father and Son, and welcome to you, Tom, on this fairly mild Friday morning.
It is indeed. Morning, Dad. Morning, all.
Yes, now, I don't know where to start. We've got a by-election here in Melbourne for the state seat of Melbourne. I live in that electorate. The Liberal Party has not put up a candidate. It's a waste of money them putting one up. It's about 14 people standing. I've got no idea how to vote. And in the end, the decision that you'll make is whether you give your preference to the Labor Party ahead of the Greens or the other way around, because that's where the vote will finish up. I've never done it before, but I think I will go and not get fined. I'll take my ticket and put a big cross through the whole thing.
Well, of course, you don't have to actually vote. All you have to do is turn up and have your name crossed off a list. I noticed that the Six Party is running a candidate, and they've said that they will not preference the Greens. They say the Greens are too moralistic for them when it comes to matters of sex.
They're going to give it to the Labor Party.
They're going to give it to the Labor Party. So I don't really know who we want to win. I mean, you live in the seat of Melbourne. I don't at the moment. But you could have run yourself as an independent. Did you consider that?
No. Well, you don't have to live in the electorate to run. You could have run as an independent as well.
I could indeed, but chose not to. Now, on another matter, we saw the terrible suspension on Tuesday night of Chris Judd, 4 weeks for bringing the game into disrepute, the now infamous chicken wing tackle. Now, I note this morning that Hawthorn superstar Lance Buddy Franklin has been caught speeding.
Has he?
40 k's over the limit in a suburban street. So, assuming the speed limit was 60, that means he was doing 100. And is that bringing the game into disrepute as well?
Well, I think it is. I mean, he is about as well known as Judd is.
Absolutely. If you go to any Auskick clinic, if the kids have got Carlton jumpers on, by and large they're all number 5, which is Chris Judd. And of course, if they're Hawthorn supporters, they're number 23 for Buddy Franklin.
That's right.
So speeding, I mean, it hasn't happened on the field of play, but it sets a very bad example, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not good at all.
Now, speaking of Carlton, can I just ask you, I don't know if you've looked at the team they've picked for the match against the Bulldogs this weekend, but it's pretty much the Northern Blues team, the Carlton reserve side. We've got several players like Tom Bell and Levi Casbolt. We don't even have a recognised ruckman playing.
Well, Casbolt must be a ruckman, is he?
He is. He's playing in the ruck.
He's playing in the ruck. I've never seen him. How tall is he?
Does this mean we're now playing for draft picks?
Well, I don't think so, but it's very sad that Judd going out. It means that Brett Ratten's probably is terminal, I think, he's coaching.
You know, funnily enough, I think it actually helps Brett Ratten, and I'll tell you why. Because Judd is out, Carlton basically now has a very good excuse not to do well in the next few weeks. It's, we lost our best player, our captain, therefore if we lose, it's the tribunal's fault. Whereas
it's not the tribunal's fault, it's Judd's fault.
Well, it's Judd's fault, yes, but the point is it's not Brett Ratten's fault. It's probably the way to look at it, and it just might be enough to keep him on. We'll have to see what happens.
I know they won't be doing anything till the end of the year. We've got to play the season out and see where we finish up. Very interesting. I met a president of the Savage Club. My mate, what's his name? It doesn't matter.
You're good, mate.
Yeah. He's Arnold Block Liebler, the lawyers, and a litigant specialist came in the morning after Judd was found guilty, and this guy's very smart. He's a Carlton supporter, and he said, Judd can now get off on a technicality. And he explained to me what that technicality was. The only way you can go direct to the tribunal and not go through the match review panel is to actually, they have to charge you with malicious misconduct. And in the charge, they did not. They only charged him with misconduct.
So why didn't Judd's defence team do this?
They rang the Carlton Football Club, and Wilson, who's a guy I know well, the QC, who's on the board of Carlton, he was representing Judd. So I'm going to ring him up and find out.
Well, I think the club's already decided not to appeal, so that's pretty much the
end. No, they had to do it the next day. It's too late now. But and they couldn't have reheard it, so it was. I think the football world would have been up in arms had he got off on the technicality. The opportunity was there.
It was there. Oh, well, what about other matters? Now, the union movement has had an interesting week. It's been coming out. On one hand, there's all these mutterings about whether the union movement might try and flex its muscle to get rid of Julia Gillard. And of course, it was union leaders that got rid of Kevin Rudd 2.5 years ago and put Gillard in, or 2 years ago. Now they're wondering whether it was such a smart move. And you know, we've seen this split between the Labor Party and the Greens, between the Labor Party and its own union supporters.
It's going to be a very interesting battle. There is no way Julia Gillard will be Prime Minister going into the next election.
Really?
No, it's all over. unless her polls improve dramatically, and I've been told that by inside Labor sources. The big squabble is, excuse me, Rudd is the most popular alternative,
yes,
and probably get the most votes with the public. They're the people who vote. But the people who've been pro-Gillard can't stand Rudd, so they are going to look for a third candidate, and it won't be one of the young guys, because he won't want to take on the Prime Ministership for 5 minutes and then lose the election. So they could well be looking at a Simon Crean or a Smith, who's the Defence Minister. So there's going to be a battle between the pro-Rudd forces, who'll be arguing very strongly that he'll get the best result of the election, and the pro-Gillard now changing forces who don't want Rudd at any cost.
I noticed with great interest that Kevin Rudd's brother, I think his name is Greg Rudd, is going to run for the Senate. And what is interesting, he got out and he described Kevin, his brother, as being dictatorial. Obviously, there's not too much love lost between them. Apparently, they have not spoken since May 2010. That was before Rudd got axed as Prime Minister. So imagine having your own brother in the Parliament with you, but you don't speak to each other anymore. I mean, it's really quite something, isn't it?
It is. Now, turning to business, I see Paul Little, who was chairman of Toll Holdings and the major person who built the company into the strong company it is today, wants to return to the board. What's your view on that?
Look, I think if you're an ex-CEO, it's always a bit difficult, because if you come back to the board or indeed even become chairman, it puts a lot of pressure on, you know, the new CEO, who sort of would feel like you're always watching over them. And you know, Leighton's had a similar issue, I believe, with I think Wild King and his successor. And you know, funny enough, Dad, it's the same as with football teams. I've got to tell you, I don't think, you know, if, and I'm sorry, Brett Ratton wouldn't like me saying this, but I don't think if you played at a club, your first coaching job should be at that same club.
It wasn't his first coaching job. He did a very good job at Melbourne, and then he went somewhere else. I've forgotten where, but he had quite a lot of coaching experience before he came to Carlton.
Right, but it's a senior coach, and of course Nathan Buckley, I mean, he of course was gone from playing for Collingwood to coaching. But in any case, in business, look, it seems to me that if you've been the CEO, you've run the company, to go back only a year or so later and go on the board, I just don't think is a good look. I think boards need to get talent from outside the business. If you know they still wanted Paul Little, they would have kept him on as CEO, but he didn't want to be CEO.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Tom. I think it's a ridiculous thing, because he's had his time, he's done a marvellous job for Toll, but you can't retire and then go back. It's a bit like, now I've had a number of people on my emails and on my website asking me to go back to Carlton. Well, I was there 20 years, and just because they're going through difficulties, it's not the sort of thing that's worth doing, in my view.
No, and it's the same in politics as well. You know, people. Although having said that, John Howard had several cracks at the leadership.
Well, he didn't ever leave the political sphere.
No, he didn't. But Peter Costello perhaps is an interesting example in politics. He could have had the leadership of the Liberal Party.
Well, he would have been Prime Minister
on a plate. But for him to go back now, I don't think he can do it. I think he had his turn, it was offered to him, he chose not to do it, and his time is up, and now, you know, Tony Abbott probably ends up being the next Liberal Prime Minister.
Well, I was down in Tasmania the last 2 days. We celebrated Sir Henry Jone's 150th birthday. He was by far the #1 businessman and entrepreneur that Tasmania's ever produced. He was the first man knighted in Tasmania in 1919. He built a huge empire around Australia and around the world. He started the fruit canning industry in South Africa, the United States and Australia. He developed the apple industry for Tasmania, the hops business, the timber business. He was a great entrepreneur, and he went up to Canberra in 1926, a long time ago, to fight for Tasmania getting support for the sugar beet industry, and against the Queenslanders who were up there getting support for the sugar cane industry. Queenslanders won the battle. He came back to Melbourne that night, staying at the Rest Hotel on Collins Street, and he had a heart attack in Collins Street and died the next morning, and 10,000 people turned up to his funeral. Wonderful day, and we had to set up some scholarships for Tasmanians if we can get people to put the money in.
And of course we're almost out of time, but a lot of people may not know that you took over Henry Jone's IXL in the early 70s, merged it with Carlton United Breweries and with Elders in the late 70s and early 80s, then built that into a behemoth again, which ultimately became Foster's, which is now part of SAB Miller. Anyway, we better leave it there, Dad.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, have a good weekend, Tom. I don't know how Carlton will go, but we'll probably know by the time this goes up.
It probably won't be a good answer.
See you next week.